The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election, they tried to rig the election and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. After what they did to me, whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about.
Jim, I can barely follow what that man says when he speaks. Like, to me, that is a conversation with somebody where you go, okay, Grandpa, go sit back down.
Yeah, but, unfortunately, for better or for worse, I speak fluent Trump. And what he's saying, in fact, is stop asking me questions about the Epstein files. Stop covering the Epstein files. Start covering everything that I talk about. And you know what? This is the problem. I've compared Trump to like a kind of a radio with a broken tuner that keeps changing channels in the middle of a sentence. And, of course, up until recently, he was getting a hall pass from all of American mainstream media, who, quite frankly, did their best to make sure he got elected to a second term. Interestingly, today, he's got the chainsaw out and he's going after them. He says the days of the mainstream media in America deceiving Americans is over. In other words, he's going to go straight on because he knows the headlines that are coming out. He saw the headlines in the Wall Street Journal, concerning this letter that he's alleged to have sent to Epstein for his birthday. This is really, really bad news. But it's interesting because when you are a member of Trump's entourage, as is Pete Hoekstra, who is the U.S. ambassador to Canada, you basically have to sing off the same hymn book, no matter how much logic is absent from it. So here we have the guy who's essentially responsible for maintaining, relations or defending the interests of his country within Canada, telling an audience in Washington State on Monday that the reason that President Trump thinks that Canada is nasty to deal with is because we have the temerity to stop traveling to his country. Oh, yes, and to stop buying his booze, which is, just a perfect example of how, Trump creates a situation, people react to it. And like most bullies, when whoever is being bullied pushes back, he just loses it. He goes completely off balance. But this is also the challenge because we'll be talking about that in a second. But we've got the premiers of Canada and the Prime Minister of Canada talking about how do we change our economy, how do we change our trade relations. But we can't ignore the fact we can't turn around and say, well, we're forgetting about the U.S. completely. We can't. Our economies are more entwined than DNA. And, the thing is, we literally cannot from day to day get a take on what American policy is because it depends on what Donald Trump wanted to, thumb out on his Truth Social account at 3 o'clock in the morning while sitting on his toilet. And it used to be, well, that's just Trump being Trump. Don't worry, there are cooler heads in charge. There are no cooler heads in charge. This is it. This is the guy we have to deal with, and he just goes nuts on a day-to-day basis. But I found it funny that this is I guess the drill that you have to follow when you're a part of Trump's entourage, which is even though you're repeating an absurdity, even though you're saying, well, imagine that. Look at those Canadians, how ridiculous it is for them to not go to America and to not buy American booze simply because the president wants to annex their country and essentially wants to slap all kinds of trade tariffs on it. You'd think that, this guy just doesn't get it. But they do get it. They all get it. And it's kind of scary to think that the deeper we go down this rabbit hole, Robin, it's like there are fewer and fewer and lesser voices that we used to hear. Even the sort of so-called official opposition, whether it's the Democratic Party, everyone seems to have fallen silent. And if the idea is, we'll wait till the midterms and we'll show him, we'll take over Congress, I think you might be a bit late at this rate at what he's saying. When he turns around and says, and he's going after, once again, Barack Obama, who last I heard hasn't been president for quite a while, but once again, he needs a He's a scapegoat because he is scared. But all that, I don't give a damn if Donald Trump is scared or if he goes to jail. I give a damn about what this means to his relations or his country's relations with my country. But right now, honest to God, Robin, I think anyone who says they know what's going on or who's going to try and predict what's going to happen is simply lying.
Well, and you know what? A lot of people also care about the Epstein list because, pedophiles, I think, a universal opinion, pedophiles belong in prison. And it's wild to me that out of everything that happened with Epstein and the people who were or weren't involved, the only person who actually is serving any time is a woman. Like, how did that happen? Like, it's absolutely wild to me. So, if there's no list, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? What is she there for?
Well, apparently she's going to be met with by Trump's Justice Department. So God knows what's going to happen there and what new kind of fabulous chapter in this we're going to see either revealed or concocted. But the consensus of people who watch Trump, certainly ever since this whole Epstein story broke, and the idea, when here's his attorney general saying, no, there is no list, there's nothing to see here, folks, move along, and his own followers are up in arms over it. You're seeing a really kind of panic-stricken reaction to that. And we don't really know where that's going to lead. But one thing you can rely upon Donald Trump to do is when he gets into trouble, he tries to create a distraction. We heard it with that clip about Obama. But now, as far as Canada goes, what is it going to be? 90% tariffs now, Robin, on Canadian goods because Canadians are so nasty to deal with. This is a problem, and you cannot plan. And it's not just us; it's the rest of the world as well, looking and saying, how long is this going to go on? How long is this uncertainty going to go on? And for one, I thought for sure this would have been ended weeks ago, if not months ago, but it's still going on. It appears that no one is holding his leash, and it really looks as if we are literally flying by the seat of our pants every day when it comes to dealing with, whether we like it or not, the most powerful nation on earth.
And you know what? I don't want to talk about Trump the whole time. We will get to the premier meeting, but they're closely intertwined. But
absolutely.
But it kind of reminds me of, I'm going to make a weird sports reference here, Jim, so stick with me. So okay. I used to work at TSN 690, formerly known as Team 990 back when I was there. And I remember people used to call in, listeners, and they would have crazy outlandish trades. They'd be like, the Habs should trade Yannick Weber for Sidney Crosby, Geno Malkin, and a first round draft pick, like things that would never, ever happen. And you could just be like, you're crazy, and hang up the phone. But this time the caller is the president of the United States, and he thinks that he can tell other nations what to do and to take these trade deals that are bad for them, and that they should just accept it.
In fact, to continue your metaphor, at this point the caller has his own show, and we have to listen to it whether we like it or not. So that's exactly where we are. But the question is, how long can this endure? How long can this go on? Because the fact is, the cracks are there. Inflation is up in the States. People are discovering that things are costing more, despite the almost trained steel synchronicity of his entourage saying the exact opposite. In fact, I recall, I think it was last week when inflation was pegged at 2.9 in the U.S., the Republicans just kept tweeting how everything costs less under Trump that very day. But, this is how things go. But listen, like you say, the premiers, the prime minister, we have our own country to run here. And I cannot leave you, Robin, without talking about everybody's favorite coquette of a premier, Francois Legault. It wasn't that long ago, Francois Legault was talking about how Quebec did not want to get its hands dirty with, filthy, dirty, stinky, lousy Canadian oil. But now times have changed, and he's acknowledged that the advent of Trump, a lot has changed, and there have been agreements, indeed, between Alberta and Ontario and Saskatchewan on building pipelines, and the pressure seems to be building on Legault, who, quite frankly, I think deep down inside is quite willing to have a pipeline go through. But he being Francois Legault, that would mean climbing down from a position that he took before, and he doesn't like to do that.
Right.
He's been saying, well, so far all I'm hearing I'm not hearing about pipelines going through Quebec. All I'm hearing about is pipelines going out west. But the fact is, there's a huge market across the Atlantic. that would love to get their hands on Canadian oil. And this is a reality that whether it's Francois Legault now or whoever Francois Legault's inevitable replacement will be in October of 2026, this is going to be an issue. And it's every single poll we've seen, and this in the past 10 years, Robin, I won't say it's overwhelming, but more than 50%, sometimes as high as 65% of respondents in Quebec said, you know what, we should be running our own energy, we should be using Canadian oil, we should be shipping Canadian oil in pipelines overseas. It's going to take a long time, I think, politically speaking, to break that narrative which has been created in Quebec by people like Francois Legault. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. But as I say, because of all the negative things we've been saying about Donald Trump, the one positive thing is he's been a huge catalyst for change, and he's broken all the old restraints. So whether it was cross-border trade in Canada itself, or our perception of markets other than the U.S. overseas, it's changing. It looks like Mark Carney is really sort of like trying to be very gung-ho about this and get everyone on side. We'll see how it's going to go. But the fact is, as I say, whether it's Francois Legault or whoever takes over his job next year, I think Quebec, sooner or later, will be the home to a pipeline.
James Mennie from the Montreal Gazette. Trudy is back tomorrow, Jim, but it was great chatting with you. Thanks so much.
Always a pleasure. À demain. Bye.